Welcome back to 3 Detail Stories, where storytime is an adventure designed by kids. I'm host and mom Rosa Leiter. If you're new to 3 Detail Stories, the idea is simple. 7-year-old Itasca and 4-year-old River pick 3 random details they want to hear a story about. Then my husband, Nicholas Leiter, comes up with a story on the fly. These stories aren't perfect, but they also aren't predictable, pretentious, or precious. They're recorded in a room where you might hear the cat getting antsy for her dinner or the kids shifting around. They're as raw and real as it gets. Without further ado, here's your invitation. It's bedtime at the Leiter House. Get comfy wherever you are and join the fun.
The ladder. Okay, my details are a dream catcher and a feather. A dream catcher and a flag. And an eye.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Jerome. And Jerome was having some pretty bad dreams. And he would wake up in the middle of the night, and he would get out of bed, and he would go wake up his parents. And he would say, I had a bad dream. And they would have to bring him back to bed and tell him that it was going to be okay and make sure that the nightlight was on. But then sometimes it got a little bit worse. Like Jerome would have a kind of bad dream and then he would get up, but then he was kind of still sleeping. And so he'd be wandering around the house. And the next thing he knew, his parents were waking him up and he was making himself a peanut butter sandwich. And he was like, how did I get in the kitchen? And why am I making myself a peanut butter sandwich? I'm not even hungry. I'm just tired. And his parents said, that's because you were sleepwalking. A couple nights later, he woke up in the middle of the night and he was riding his dad's stationary bicycle. And the next night, he woke up and he was on his mom's treadmill.
What's a treadmill?
One of those things where you run in place. And the next night, he woke up and he was jumping on a trampoline.
His trampoline?
Yeah. And so his parents said, that is it. What we need is to get you a dream catcher. Something to catch those dreams so that they don't bother you as much. So they got him a dream catcher and they hung it right by his bed. And he said, okay, I'll try. But the next day he woke up and he was hitting a ping pong ball against the wall in the middle of the night. And his parents said, I guess that dream catcher didn't work. His parents had a new idea. They said, okay, we're going to hang a sleep flag. And every time you go to sleep, we're going to fly the flag. And that means it's sleeping time and no dreaming time and no running on the treadmill, jumping on the trampoline, bicycling on the stationary bicycle, playing ping pong time. It's just sleep time. This is the sleep flag. And they showed it to him. And it was all white. And he said, well, why is it white? And they said, because you can decorate it however you want. And so he drew the sun going down over the mountains and some stars in the sky. And that to him meant time to go to sleep. And so that night at bedtime, they flew the sleep flag, put it up right by his bed, right by the dream catcher. They said, okay, good night. And went to sleep, and Jerome slept very good that night. And when he woke up in the morning, he said, I think the sleep flag worked. And his parents were very pleased. They said, oh, I think it worked too. So they did it again the next night. But that night,
maybe they need to do a different flag every night or a different thing every night.
And so the next night, he woke up in the middle of the night, despite the sleep flag, got up and started making pancakes. And his parents came into the kitchen. They said, Jerome, what are you doing? And there he was, just mixing a big bowl of batter, stirring it with a spoon. And he said, I don't know. What am I doing? His parents finally asked him the next day. They said, so what happens when you get up? And he says, well, I open my eyes and I see a little light. And then I get up. And then it's like I fall right back to sleep again. And then the next thing I know, I'm on the stationary bicycle or making pancakes or something. And finally they said, maybe it's your eyes that are the problem. And so they got him a sleep mask. And the sleep mask was very cool. It had these dark kind of pillows, and they put it over his head. And they said, now, when you wake up and you open your eyes, it'll be dark. And make sure you don't lift up the sleep masks. Just tell yourself to go right back to sleep. And the next night, he slept through the whole night. And the next night, same thing. And the next night, same thing. And finally he said, I think we found the solution. After all of that. And his parents said, well, that's called trial and error. You try some things and they don't work, and you try something else. And as long as you're persistent and you keep trying, you will always accomplish your goal. The end. Good night, buddy.
Night, Daddy. Jelly. I love you.
Love you too.
You have to hug Carlos. Hug him.
Good night, Carlos.
Night.
This week, we are opening up 3 detail stories to detail suggestions from you. If you have a detail you'd like to share, email it to 3detailstories@gmail.com. You can write your detail, or you can record a clip of you saying your name and what your detail is if you'd like to hear your voice in an upcoming podcast. Now to story number 2.
A pom-pom and a rainbow. And a reindeer.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy, and it was his birthday coming up. His sister asked him what he wanted for his birthday, and he thought, and he thought, and he thought, and he was like, well, I have games, and I have puzzles, and I've got a remote control car, and I've got balls and a tennis racket, and I've got all of this stuff. Yo-yo. And so I really should think of something different that I want. So he said,
Remote control airplane?
And so he said, I want a reindeer. And she thought about this for a little while, and she said, well, okay, if that's what you want, I'll try to get it for you. And he said, okay, that sounds good. And so he waited, and he was telling everybody, he was like, I think I might get a reindeer for my birthday. And
I think Santa's gonna get one of his reindeers to him.
I think so. He was eagerly awaiting his birthday, and his family threw him a big birthday party in the backyard, and all of his friends came, and his aunts and uncles came, and his cousins came, and it was a very good time. And they had a big barbecue, and they had a big birthday cake, and they all sang him happy birthday. But then it was time to open presents. And so he opened a bunch of his presents, and finally it got to his sister. And his sister said, are you ready? And he said, yeah. And she went to the hose, and she turned on the hose. When she turned on the hose, there was all of this mist that came out of these little hose lines that she had set up on the railing of the patio. And it sent this mist into the air. And he was like, whoa. And he imagined this reindeer coming through the mist. And after the mist was there for a while, then she went over and she uncovered this special light from beneath a sheet that she had that was in the grass. And she said, are you ready? And he said, yeah. And she turned on the light. In the mist and in the light and in their whole backyard, there was a big rainbow. And everyone went, whoa. And even the little boy went, whoa. And she said, ta-da. And he looked at the rainbow for a while. And finally he said, okay, well, where's the reindeer? And she said, what reindeer? He said, when you asked me what I wanted, I said a reindeer. And she said, what? I thought you said a rainbow. And he went, oh. And for a minute, he was kind of disappointed. But then he looked up at the rainbow and he said, So anytime I want, I can turn on these misters and turn on that light and I can have a rainbow in the backyard? And she said, yeah. And he said, you know what? That is even better than a reindeer. And he gave her a big hug. All of their friends cheered and cheered and cheered. They cheered so much, it was like they were cheerleaders with pom-poms. They were so happy for them. And every single day, whenever that little boy was feeling kind of down, he knew that he could just go outside, turn the misters on and the light, and have a rainbow in his very own backyard.
Ooh, how about we try that with ours?
Yeah, the end.
Maybe a rainbow will come out. Okay? How about we do it today?
Don't forget to send us your details at 3detailstories@gmail.com. We're also looking for a little help if you happen to have a minute to rate the show or even give us our first review. Big gratitude to anyone who shares the show with other parents, grandparents, or teachers who might be interested.
Thanks for listening and see you next week.
Great job!